Breaking news, the Pelicans have lost Brandon Ingram, another devastating injury hitting the NBA, and this is going to change a lot, both for the trade market as well as for the Pelicans' future. I'm going to explain both those things on today's video. Make sure you do subscribe right here to the channel. It's free, and we'd love to have you along for this basketball journey. All right, here's what's going on. Shams Charania of ESPN reporting that Brandon Ingram has sustained a significant low left ankle sprain, and is out indefinitely. He will miss extended time with the injury. He rolled his ankle when he landed on the foot of Blue Dort. You could see it. Ingram was in a lot of pain when the injury happened, and now he is going to be out for the foreseeable future. The Pelicans simply cannot get healthy. This team has been crushed by the injury bug. This is a good team. You've got some talented players, DeJounte Murray, Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram. I love the wing combo of Herb Jones, Trey Murphy III. They've got real talent on this team. Rookie Yves Missi has shown some things, but they cannot stay healthy. They've been crushed due to injuries. And you look, I can't even get them on the screen. They're so far down. They are dead last in the Western Conference right now. 5-19 on the season, a minus 12 point differential. That is the second worst point differential in the NBA behind only the Washington Wizards. That's how injured this Pelican side has been. I think they're a playoff team. Well, play in probably anyway, but they're in the mix if they're healthy. And they've been so injured that they're right now dead last. So I want to talk about what this means for the Pelicans' future, because this is a big deal. This is a really big deal for the Pelicans and their future. I want to get into that. But first, what does this mean for Brandon Ingram on the trade front? Because we've been talking a lot about BI being a player that teams should be interested in. He's extremely talented. He's somebody that could step in and really help a team hit another level, and he's very much available. You look at what he's done: 22 points, 5 assists, 5 boards. He's shooting the ball well from deep, 37% from three on pretty good volume, 6.4 attempts, 47% from the field if we round up. He's having a nice season for the Pelicans. Played in 18 games, which is pretty good for him. He tends to miss games. That's the one thing that you could see. The one, caution that teams have when they would look at maybe trading for Brandon Ingram is that he played 64 games last season, and that was the most he had played in his entire career except for his rookie season. So Brandon Ingram is a guy that misses time every single season, and this latest injury is only going to confirm that. So what do the Pelicans do now on the trade front? Because frankly, I thought they needed to move on from Brandon Ingram. They've made it pretty clear they don't want to be the team to give him his next contract. He wants somewhere near a max. The Pelicans were more in the range of 36 to 40 million. That, to me, honestly, that sounds like a pretty fair deal to me. I don't think the Pelicans are lowballing Brandon Ingram. I think BI ultimately, maybe he would have had to take that, but he was hoping some other team would give him more, even being willing. The most recent rumor was that he was willing to take a shorter term contract. So it was pretty clear that Brandon Ingram wants that near max money and is willing to take less years to get it, but did not want to take the 36 to 40 million the Pelicans were willing to give up. Again, I don't think the Pelicans were offering an unfair amount if that's what they're willing to go to. And that's also why Brandon Ingram is still a Pelican, because other teams also agree with the Pelicans that that's probably about his value, and they're not willing to give up that money. So what happens now, though? Because, again, I thought moving Brandon Ingram would make a lot of sense if you could find another team that was willing to pay that money. The challenge being that you have to find a team that's willing to give up stuff that the Pelicans want to get Brandon Ingram so that they can pay him the money that he wants. So number one, you have to find a team that's willing to pay him. And number two, you have to find a team that's willing to give up stuff in order to pay him, whether it's future draft capital, contracts, whatever. So it's a bit of a challenge. But nonetheless, he was one of, if not maybe the biggest names out there on the trade market heading into February 6th trade deadline. So what happens now? Well, I think teams are going to be even more cautious with BI. Let's say, best case scenario, fingers crossed, he comes back. I'm speculating. I'm not a doctor. But let's say he comes back 6 weeks from now. Even then, our team's going to be okay with trading for Brandon Ingram. We're going to be right up against the trade deadline. It'll be pretty close. He'll have a handful of games maybe to get back out on the floor and show that he's healthy. Will that be enough to ease the concerns of opposing teams to where they trade for Brandon Ingram? So I'll tell you this, nobody's trading for him right now. Nobody's trading for Brandon Ingram right now. And yes, technically they can. You can trade for an injured player. That is not against the rules. But I don't think anybody's trading for Brandon Ingram right now with this ankle injury because the teams that would want him are teams that would be seeing him as the piece to put them over the top. You're not going to trade for a guy that you can't put on the floor for an extended period of time. It's the rebuilding clubs. They're not going to see Brandon Ingram as their 1A guy they're going to rebuild around. If they did, they would still trade for him. I'm talking about the young teams that are on the rise. Could the Portland Trailblazers say, just being one team to pull out of the hat? Or the Washington Wizards, any of those teams, the Jazz, could any of those teams be teams that say, you know what, BI is going to be our guy? If that was the case, if they saw him that way, and the Jazz did have some trade interest in him over the summer, but he didn't want to go there. If any of those teams truly believed he is our next star that we're building around, he's going to be that level for us, then they would probably still trade for him. But I don't think teams see him that way. I think they see him as more of a second guy at best, maybe a third guy on a good team. And that's why paying him that much money is going to be a really big ask under the current CBA. So what happens here? I think this is just Brandon Ingram is kind of being held off the trade market for a bit. I think he's going to be on the shelf here, and teams are going to be waiting to see if he can get back on the floor before the trade deadline hits. And even then, there will be teams that will be cautious. So I do think this is a significant setback for Brandon Ingram's trade value, and where this goes from here is going to be fascinating. Now, for the Pelicans side of things, for the Pels, I've been saying it, and I am now more convinced than ever. It's time to tank. It's time to do it. I'm not just talking about Brandon Ingram. I'm talking Zion. You're 5-19. Now you've some guys come back and get healthy, but now Brandon Ingram is out. You're in the West. It is very difficult to make up ground in the Western Conference. They're 1-9 in their last 10 games. It took 46 wins to make the play-in the Western Conference last season. Let's assume it's the same. The Pelicans would have to go on a hellacious run from here on out in order to get there. They'd have to win 41 wins. They've already burned through 24 games on the NBA schedule, and they would need 41 wins throughout the rest of the season just to hit that 46 games mark. And that was just to get the 10 seed last year in the Western Conference. It's not happening. It's not happening. So you know what you do if you're the Pelicans? You know what you do? Yeah, this is it. You have to do this. You have to. There's no more question, no more well maybe. No. Tank. Play the hand that you've been dealt. If you can find a trade for Brandon Ingram, great. Trade Brandon Ingram. Get what you can for him if you truly don't want to be the team to pay him on his next contract. Maybe this injury lowers the asking price on his next contract. Maybe it does that, and you can find a way to retain him. Maybe that's now an option, depending on how. Maybe this keeps him out till March. Who knows? I hope it doesn't, but maybe it does. And if that's the case, then maybe it lowers his market value enough to where you can keep him. But I'm exploring the trade market with Brandon Ingram. I'm exploring the trade market with CJ McCollum. I don't know if anybody wants to pay him $33 million, but I'm doing everything I can to move him. And I'm exploring the trade market with Zion Williamson, because I'll tell you this, everybody, this draft class is loaded. The Pelicans have been crushed by injuries. I think the basketball gods are telling them this team is not it. This team is not it. Don't continue to go all in for this group. Instead, there is a tremendous opportunity in front of them. Yes, it's terrible that they've been permanently injured this season, but you look at what Memphis did last season. They got destroyed by injuries. They found silver linings. They found Vince Williams, G.G. Jackson, Jake LaRavia got it going. They got a good pick. They got Zach Edey. Now they've got a big man. I know he's out hurt right now, but he'll be back soon in a few weeks. So you took a bad situation and you at least gained something from it. That's what the Pelicans need to do. Take a bad situation and make sure that it's not just a lost season. Get a great pick in a great draft class. Get whatever assets you can for Zion, for Brandon Ingram. And if you can clear CJ McCollum off the books for next year, do that. Then you're building your new team, the new Orleans Pelicans. You're building them around whoever you draft. Maybe you get Cooper Flagg. Maybe that's what you get out of all of this. DeJounte Murray, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, Jordan Hawkins, Yves Missi. That's your team. That's your core. And that ain't bad. That is not a bad group to have moved. There's a lot of teams that would be jealous of having that kind of a young core to build around. And whatever future assets you can get for Zion. I know Zion, when he's on the floor, he is a star, but he's not on the floor. It's the same problem with Brandon Ingram. You can't keep him on the floor. Turn the page. It's time to turn the page in New Orleans. See what you can get for Zion. See what you can get for BI at the trade deadline if he can get back and be healthy. See what you can get for CJ McCollum. If you can't get anything for BI at the trade deadline because he's not healthy, then you try to work a sign and trade over the summer, or you try to use his depressed market value because of the injury against him and you sign him to a cheaper deal. Maybe it has to be a short-term deal. He's not a bad player. He's young enough to still be part of their future, just 27 years old. But if the right offer comes along, I'm moving on from him. The Zion Williamson era, it's time for it to be over in New Orleans. It's time for it to be over. They've been given an opportunity here because of these injuries. It's opened a door for them to land a top flight talent in this year's draft. And I think the Pelicans need to lean into it. Embrace the tank, move what you can, and reset this thing. Everybody, let me know what you think. What do you think the Pelicans should do right now? Should they follow my plan? Still try to trade Brandon Ingram if he can get back out on the court, if you can find a taker. Try to move Zion Williamson, get what you can for him, see what the market will provide, as well as CJ McCollum. See if anybody needs a guard and see if you can move off from him, collect assets, get ready for the draft, and move forward. Let me know if you agree with that plan or not. Put it in the comment section down below, and make sure you go check out our latest video as well. I'm going to put that up on the screen right now.